This is Steve Terry from St. John's Lutheran Church. Have you ever wondered what kind of impact you've had on people's lives? Whether or not you've made a difference and whether or not you've affected in a positive way the people that you've encountered throughout your life. Whether you're a teacher or a businessman or just a husband or possibly a coach or in my instance, a minister, a pastor of a church. Well, I've had the opportunity because of a serious illness, my heart failure and my subsequent hospitalization, to receive all sorts of input and all sorts of feedback from many people who have been praying for me and wishing me good health. Many of them decided to talk about how I've impacted their lives throughout all these years. You know, I have to admit that there are times as I get older, I wonder about what my funeral might be like, whether or not anyone will come and what they might say about me. I wonder whether or not God is pleased with the way that I've lived my faith and practiced love and charity to others. Well, I had a great letter from a friend of mine, a colleague in ministry, who wrote to me just recently, and I received it yesterday, and I read it aloud to a couple of people at the church, and one of them interrupted me and says, "This sounds like a eulogy." And I agreed. I have the benefit of still being alive after my heart failure, and yet also hearing all these wonderful things about the impact I've had on people's lives. I'm hearing testimonies about my making a difference. Well, we need to live our lives like that, do we not? Do we not need to think about how we impact others and show kindness and love and charity and forgiveness and mercy to everyone we meet? Regardless of whether or not we hear any of our impact on their lives, we need to live a life so that we make a difference in this life. We get one of our lives, only one. And in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16, it says this. It says, "And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for such sacrifices is pleasing to God." But what I also think of is the parable of the sheep and the goats, where Jesus is telling his friends and his followers that God will separate the sheep and the goats based on how they live their lives, based on whether or not they had faith and whether or not they did charity. And in fact, he says in chapter 25, verse 34, he says, "And the king will say to those on his right," those he separated from those on his left, he'll say this, "Come, you who are blessed by the Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in and welcomed me. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Well, in this teaching, the friends and disciples responded and said, "Well, when did I do these things?" And Jesus added the most important things. He said, "Whenever you do this to the least of my children, you do it for me." We are to be a people who live every day looking around with a radar of how can I serve and help and minister and love and give charity to those in need and to those around us. I have been blessed with an opportunity throughout my life to serve others, to lead people in faith, and to do good and to give charity. But every one of us has that opportunity. Just look around. There are people in need. Look around. Your loved ones are hurting. Look around. There's someone that could use a kind word or a good Christian act. So maybe you won't have to go through a serious illness to hear this from those around you, but don't worry about that. Just do good and show God's love to those around you. and you will be rewarded in this life and possibly, and certainly in the next life. May you be blessed today.